We just had one of the craziest, if not the craziest FNCS Grand Finals of all time, with record-breaking viewership numbers and insane finishes. And in this video, I'm going to recap both EU and NA FNCS Grand Finals and go over the top 10 teams and also talk about the major stories that happened this weekend. And I want to start off by talking about how the EU FNCS Grand Finals was one of the craziest FNCSs ever, with a peak viewership of over 730,000, breaking the FNCS record for both LAN and online, breaking the recent FNCS Global Championships record of 722,000. This is of course in part due to Mongrel's return to FNCS and him playing with Mr. Savage, and also many other huge creators streaming the tournament. And Fortnite competitive right now is just thriving better than it's ever been almost. Getting into the recap of the weekend, EU was one of the most entertaining and close finishing tournaments we've seen in a while. And going into the last two games, it was a two-team race between Queasy Thomas HD and Malabuka Murstache, in a battle to see who would win their first FNCS title, Malabuka or Thomas HD. And we got a finish you couldn't even script any better, with Malabuka finally getting his first FNCS Grand Finals win by just 1 point. And after an insanely chaotic last game, where Queasy and Thomas HD went down early and in-game, all Murstache and Malabuka had to do was get like 10 points, and they ended up going down, but just got enough placement points to win by 1. Sadly, we will still not see that Thomas HD FNCS win, and they came so close after being contested 10 of the 12 games, and finally being uncontested in the last 2 games, but couldn't get it done yet again. Thomas HD now has 3 second places, 5 third places, and 3 fourth places in FNCS Grand Finals, which are still truly some of the most consistent placements in the world. Also, by getting second place, Queasy has now reached 1 million earned officially, so he now joins the exclusive $1 million earned club. But moving on to third place, we have Kiro and Kadu, who were actually contested by Pink and Vico, and they both ended up getting top 5 this weekend after they both had some insane day 2s. These teams were contesting each other on day 1, and neither of them were top 20 after day 1, and then moving into day 2, while still contesting each other, they popped off and went insane when they could make the in-game to each get top 5. That's not even the most insane comeback of the weekend though, as in 4th place, Sandguild and Marius, who actually started day 2 in 39th place, and did so well in day 2 that they jumped all the way up to 4th place, showing that this format being so heavy for day 2 can help out so much, and that your day 1 placement shouldn't affect you going into day 2, because anything can happen if you go crazy on day 2. 3 insane performances in the top 5, 2 teams contesting each other get top 5, and 1 team who was almost 40th place heading into day 2 also gets the top 5 as well. Next in 6th place was Pablo, Wingu, and Bevies, who had a really good chance of winning EU Grands after the first game on day 2, but sadly just didn't perform after that first game. Probably not the placement they were hoping for after the first game, but a 6th place is still really solid. Next in 7th place was Rezon and Vidil, who were actually in first on day 2 at times, but sadly one of the games, one of them did not load in, and that kind of killed the tournament for them. They were playing so good, and for something like that to happen and kill the momentum is super unfortunate. Now let's quickly recap the rest of EU. We have G-Ross and Chari, who ended up getting 8th place, Lunex and Moni, who ended up getting 9th place, and Andalex and Seito, who ended up getting 10th place while contested the entire tournament. Then we have some teams that sort of underperformed this weekend. We have Vino and Tayson in 15th, and Yanis and Flixie in 16th. I mentioned in my prediction video that I didn't really like the duo of Vino and Tayson, and in Grands they kind of proved that right. They didn't really have great surge a lot, and ended up just struggling on day 2 when they started day 2 in the top 5. So an unfortunate 15th for Tayson, and this is actually his 3rd 15th place in a row. Then we have Yanis and Flixie, who some people had actually picked to win this FNCS, but I actually had them predicted to get 3rd. Yanis and Flixie started off the tournament insane. They were 1st place after 2 games, but after that it kind of seems like their strategy just ruined it for them. They were taking a bunch of unneeded fights, and it ended up just costing them the tournament. Then we have the major story on EU. One of the most favored teams to actually end up winning the entire Grand Finals, Seti and Cammy, ended up getting 33rd place. Definitely not where anybody expected them to get. They had an absolutely terrible tournament, and if you ask them, it was probably even worse than terrible. I truly don't know what happened to them this weekend, but to see them in 33rd place is actually insane and honestly doesn't even seem real. This is known as one of the most consistent teams in the world, and to see them play so bad is actually kind of sad. Hopefully we see them bounce back next season and don't split, because this is still truly one of the best teams in the world. And then lastly on EU, we have Mongrel and Mr. Savage in 40th place, and Phaser and King in 41st place. Mongrel and Mr. Savage were contested almost every single game this weekend and actually did pretty good off spawn on day 2. But sadly, the contest and also getting cleaned up really just went against them this weekend. Would have loved to see them uncontested, and so would the viewership numbers. But sadly, this is where they fall. They did make a couple in games, but wish we could have saw more. And then in 41st, Phaser and King, I don't know why they ended up landing where they did. They've been practicing Reckless Railways all season long, and Reckless was actually only contested by Yanis the entire tournament almost. Only one team at Reckless is insane. I don't know why Phaser and King didn't switch back and play the spot they actually know how to loot and play, but hopefully they learn from this mistake in the future. Overall though, EU was actually super fun. I'm normally not the biggest fan of watching EU tournaments, but this season was actually insanely fun, and the finish was even more insane. But moving on, let's get into the NA Grand Finals recap. And in first place by an absolute landslide, we have Acorn and Cold, who absolutely went crazy on day 2. Acorn and Cold won 2 games in the last 3 matches of the tournament to end up winning by over 170 points. Fencing ends up winning both EU and NA's FNCS Grand Finals, and Acorn and Cold are back on top of NA. Next in second place, we have Peterbot and Poyo, who ended up getting second place, who going into the last match were actually in a tight race with Aviv and Booga to get second, but Aviv and Booga actually got box dived by Asian Jeff and Oliver OG, which ended up ending Aviv and Booga's game, so they ended up getting third place instead of second place. But seeing Poyo in second place is insane. Poyo is still one of the most underrated players on NA, and will probably end up getting an FNCS win at some point in the future. But moving on to fourth, we have the big story. Clix and Epicwell end up getting fourth. Clix ties his best placement ever in FNCS Grand Finals, and Clix was playing absolutely insane this weekend. Clix ended up finishing first in damage overall for the weekend, and also was one of the best snipers in the world. He had the second most snipes hit across all regions, and was truly looking like 2018 LeBron out there with this sniper. I'm playing some of the snipes he hit on just day 1 on the screen right now, and they are actually insane. Clix popped off this weekend and probably played his best tournament ever and almost got the top 3 he was looking for. Clix and Epicwell did overperform my expectations by just a little bit. I saw them getting around the 8th place and they ended up getting 4th. So a super good placement and a super good performance out of them. Clix looked insane this weekend, and he might just be the best sniper in the world. Sorry, Thomas HD. Next in 5th place though, we have Ritual and Reet. This was one of the teams heavily favored going into the weekend, but sadly they just finished in 5th place. A couple bad games on day 2 really costed them 3 different 0-point games almost, so they could have did a lot better, but sadly they just didn't ice up on day 2. Then quickly moving on, we have Noxy and Crisp in 6th place, Skittles and Trashy in 7th place, and then in 8th place we have a major story, Yamzo and Rise, one of the favored teams to win heading into the weekend, who only ended up playing 10 matches, but even then only ended up actually playing 8 matches due to lag. They were apparently getting hit offline and missed 2 games because of this, and then in the 2 games they played after getting hit off on day 2, they were just lagging the entire time and died early. It sucks to see a team with so much potential heading into the weekend not be able to play the entire tournament, missing multiple games and then lagging out in the other 2 that they played on day 2. Going into day 2, they were in 1st place, and they were also in 1st place after 8 games on day 2. So Yamzo and Rise would have had an insane chance to win. They would have had to have battled with the Acorn and Cold placement on day 2, who went insane. But Yamzo and Rise were looking primed to win this season, and this was probably their best shot to actually win. But sadly, these unfortunate things happen. Next in 9th place, we have Cooper and Miro, who were top 3 going into day 2. But sadly, while uncontested, they just did not perform as well as they did while contested. I don't know if it was them missing the surge or what happened to them, but Cooper and Miro did end up falling down to 9th place, sadly. And then rounding out the top 10, we have Baka and Pars, who were contested the entire tournament, so getting top 10 at a 50-50 drop is quite insane. Baka and Pars are still one of the most underrated duos on NA, and hopefully we can finally see them uncon one season to see what they truly can do while uncontested. I feel like every season this duo is conned, and I really hope one time they are unconned so we can truly see what they can do. And then moving on to the big name teams on NA, we have Agers and Kanata, who ended up getting 13th place, is probably the favorite heading into the weekend. They were contested on day 1, and that really just threw off their whole entire tournament. They started day 2 outside of top 30 and ended up bringing it back to 13th, but even then probably wish they could have done even better. It sucks to think you're going into the tournament unconned with an insane chance to win, and then you just have a team griefing you or taking half your loot, and you have to play an entire different Fortnite than you've been used to playing. So sucks to see them in 13th, but I'm sure we'll see them back contending for FNCS wins next season. And then we have Jiven in his first FNCS getting 37th place with his duo Piggle. Outperformed my expectations by a mile. Getting 37th in your first grands and your teammates' first grands while being a YouTuber is insane. Jiven wasn't even practicing for this season. He was focused on making maps, so getting 37th place is awesome. I'd love to see Jiven make grands again next season. We'll see what happens though, but for his first grands, getting 37th place while contested is insane, and hopefully he makes an insane YouTube video out of it. Overall, the EU and NA grands were insane, but we also had some major stories on other regions. On Middle East, they ended up restarting the last game because 18 players didn't get in, and there were also multiple issues like this with players getting in on every region. But on Middle East, they had it the worst with the 18 players not getting in the very last game. And then over on Brazil, after day 1, the team in first place was actually banned for teaming. Apparently, Fortnite thinks 5-time FNCS winner PHN needs to team for Surge, but it was the most casual Surge trading we've ever seen. We've been seeing Surge trading like this in every FNCS. We've seen it in the Global Championship. We've seen it in every LAN. It's basically what every team does at a POI that is tradable like this. You just sit at a tower, shoot the other team, and then go back down and heal. I really don't understand the ban considering how many teams have done something just like this, especially at LAN when teams did this as well. It really sucks because we could have seen PHN win his 6th FNCS, but sadly he did get banned. I want you guys to comment down below your thoughts on this weekend below, what you thought, which regions you watched, and comment down which teams maybe surprised you in a good or bad way this weekend. If you guys are new to the channel, as always, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications to never miss predictions, a recap, news videos, or anything centered around Fortnite competitive. And also, if you did enjoy this video, make sure to hit the like button as it would get pushed out to more people. FNCS Grand Finals was insane, and I want to thank you all for the support on the last video and the support on every single social media lately, on the streams, on Twitter, on everything. That's going to do it for me in this video, guys. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you next time.